Some of you might be familiar with the very long story about King Solomon, about Shlomo HaMelech, that there was a time that he was thrown out from Jerusalem by a certain demon, etc., and for a while he was in exile, and he lost his whole rule. And the Gemara in Sanhedrin says the sages make what seemed to be a very tongue-in-cheek, ironic, and humorous statement about that time that he was in exile. That King Solomon, that used to rule over Elyonim v'Tachtonim, the upper and lower worlds, eventually at that time, he just was king over Makloi, over his walking stick. This person that was once king over all the world, the upper lower worlds, he was the ultimate ruler and king. For a time he was exiled, and he molach al Makloi, he was just a king over his walking stick. Now that seems to be making fun. But Chassidus explains that it's really not, that it's explaining that Shlomo HaMelech, that King Solomon, and really all the kings of the Davidic dynasty have this characteristic, that they're essentially kings. They're essentially kings. And that's what the Pasuk says in Divrei Hayomim. The verse says, Vayiten olav hoid malchus. That on King Solomon was put Hoid Malchus, this real majesty and glory of kingship. And as we learned a little already bit yesterday, what does it mean Hod Malchus as opposed to Hadrat Berov Am Hadras Melech? You see, most people understand that a king could only be a king if there's a nation. You can't have majesty, you can't be a king, Ein Melech Below Am. If you don't have a nation, if you don't have subjects, then you can't be a king. That's Hadar Malchus. Berov Am Hadras Melech. The more people that a king has, the greater his nation, the more his Hadar, the more he has splendor and majesty in his kingship. But you know, the Davidic kings, the sages teach us that on Pashup Pshat, the kings of the Davidic line had a strange shaped head. And the Gemara says that HaKeser Holamto, that the crown that the Davidic kings wore had a special shape that only kings of the Davidic dynasty, on only their heads it would fit. It was shaped in such a weird way that only in their heads it would fit. And Chassidus, the Rebbe Rashab explains, what does that mean? It means that Davidic kings, their kingship, the fact that they're kings, that they have majesty, has nothing to do with a nation. It's an essential exaltedness. It's an essential integrity. It's an essential beauty that's way beyond something that's dependent on a nation. King Solomon for a time just had his walking stick, and yet he was essentially the same king. He was as kingly, as exalted, as prominent, with as much integrity. Hod Malchus is not a beauty that comes, or a kingship, a majesty that comes from having a huge nation. It's an inner kingship, an essential dignity, an essential being king. You see, and that's what it says in Tehillim, in Psalms chapter 21 about Mashiach. If you look in Psalms chapter 21, King David says about Mashiach, Hod v'hadar tishaveh alav, that Mashiach will have Hod and Hadar. Which means that some people think that the kingship of Mashiach will be that he's going to rule over the whole world and fix the whole world. That's going to be the Hadar, the splendor, the glory of his majesty, that he's going to rule over the whole world. That's the Hadar Malchus, Brov Am Hadras Melech, the revealed beauty of what a king is, the revealed majesty which is in the great nation and ruling over the world. But Mashiach will have, not only that, he'll have also Hod. Like Moshe Rabbeinu had Hod, the Karnei Hod, that his face was glowing. It wasn't a Hod, it wasn't a majesty. King Moses was also a king, but he wasn't a type of king that had a majesty that he ruled many nations. It was an essential majesty that he was completely transcendent and beyond. And Mashiach will have that Hod as well. He will not just rule the world, but have that essential Hod, which will partake of that transcendent Hod, that essential beauty that God has. That's not dependent on a nation. And on this day of netzach shebehod, we have to tap into that as well. You see, netzach shebehod is the victory that comes from that acknowledgement, the firm resolution to stay true to what you acknowledge in an inner way. Who you are essentially remains unmoved. That's the real majesty. That's what it really means to have Hod Malchus. That you could just have a walking stick and you're essentially an exalted person. Because your netzach shebe, your firm resolution to be true to what you acknowledge, what you submit yourself, what you humbly give yourself over to, which is Hashem, then you partake in that Hod, which is the Hod that Mashiach will have, that essential glory of Mashiach that won't just be fixing the world. It'll be the fact that he's essentially one with Hashem. And when we acknowledge ourselves, have that Haidah to Hashem, to give ourselves over to God in such a way, we have netzach shebehod. We're victorious over anything that stands in our way because we partake of that essential integrity and profound beauty that's not dependent on our surroundings and anything around ourselves, but it's a deep inner Hod, an inner majesty, and that's the beauty that comes from the midah of Hod.